You mean I have to write it on my
Yeah, I was thinking,
paper?
why don't you just type it into the chat? I think that
Into the
makes more
chat.
sense. That way I can see it right away and give you feedback.
Okay, wait a moment. Let me open the browser.
And this time I'm going to use stuff directly from the grammar lesson that I'm going to go over with you.
You
So,
mean
like,
you're
I'm going to
reviewing
use the
the lesson
example.
that we had yesterday,
No, today's lesson.
today's lesson? Do I have the paper?
Yeah, I just added it to the one that you already have. It's common mistakes and advanced discussion 5.
Oh,
But
okay.
I added hyphens to that because I want to go over hyphens with you. Hyphens are the dashes. Like
Oh, okay.
when you say re-elect the president, you put RE hyphen elect, ELECT. We'll
Mm-hmm.
go over it. And there are these things called compound adjectives, where it's many words that go together to make an adjective. But let's wait until I can share my screen with you.
Okay.
All right. So number one, she was relieved to
She
have
was, sorry.
she was relieved to have the innocuous title of president elect.
She was relieved to have.
She was relieved to have the innocuous title of president elect.
She was relieved to have the innocuous. Is it a name?
Innocuous, it means like innocent
Okay, I've
or
never heard this
harmless.
word before.
Right. Innocuous title of president elect.
Okay, then the next one.
Okay. For Steve's birthday, Annie bought him an electric coffee maker.
For Steve's birthday, Annie bought him an electric coffee maker.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I'm done.
Next one. The correct way to spell that word in English is Hello.
Sorry, can you come again? The correct way to spell
The,
that word.
the correct word to spell that word in English is Hello.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. He was proud of his well stocked cupboards. He was proud of his well stocked cupboards.
He was proud of his wealth stock cupboard.
It's plural, cupboards. But yeah, correct.
You mean the cupboards to keep things?
Yeah, right.
Okay, is it something like I mean, is it the same as the safe that you keep all your
No.
bubbles in?
A cupboard is usually not locked like a safe, although it could be. It's generally you find them in the kitchen. At
Can be
least
found
in
in the kitchen.
Western kitchens will have these. Or maybe if you're super rich in Asia, you'll have them too. I think because they're expensive here, but it's like picture a shelf that can be closed with a door. It's basically just a closed shelf that you can open and close with a door. You can keep your dishes. Actually, no, my girlfriend's condo has them, so they're definitely pretty common in Thailand at least.
That's me, your girlfriend is very rich. Right?
She does have a nice condo, I guess. I don't think she's super rich.
Oh, okay.
That was the place that you said looked very rich in my I forget what you said exactly, but you said something to that effect yesterday. That's the in my story. I was working out there. That's her condo.
Oh, that's her condo.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's the gym at her condo. It's quite nice. Okay. Kathy drove her 7-year-old son to school every morning.
Katie
It can be
Ives.
either way. My mom spells it with K, but in this case, actually no, spell it with K.
Okay, Katie drives her son to school.
Kathy, Kathy drove. Did I say drives? It should be
Because you say every
Kathy.
morning.
Kathy drove her 7-year-old son to school every morning.
Katie drove her
Kathy, like
Kathy.
short for Kathleen.
Okay, right.
Hmm.
Kathy drove her son
Her 7-year-old son to
her
school every morning.
Do I need to put like Kathy used to drive her 7-year-old son to school every morning? Means like she did it in the past, right?
Yeah, this is usually talking about. It's like a narrator is telling you a story about Kathy.
Okay.
Kathy drove her 7-year-old son to school every morning. Okay, that's all. So, do you need me to repeat any of them?
I've sent a message to you. I've sent all the messages.
Let me check the chat. It says our connection is yellow. I see yellow bars. I don't. Did you send them in line?
On WhatsApp.
Okay, got you. Okay. Good. Except for his well-stocked cupboards. Let me show you the sentence.
Okay.
So well-stocked cupboards.
Well-stocked cupboards.
It's a
Oh, okay.
compound adjective meaning well applies to stocked. How were they stocked? They were stocked well. So they are well-stocked cupboards.
Okay.
So we have an adverb well and then
So
an
you keep
adjective
all your
stocked.
dishes in the cupboard. That's all.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. It could be like all the dishes, all the food. People usually, a kitchen cupboard describes something that holds food or it can hold dishes.
But I mean, sometimes we have a rack, right, to keep the dishes. Am I right? Like the metal, it's metallic.
A rack, yeah, that's for drying them, correct?
Yeah, that is to. I mean,
That's a different,
that's different, right?
that would be called a drying rack.
Oh,
Yeah.
so how do you spell it?
Drying rack, exactly like you
Drying
were
rack.
saying. Yeah.
Oh, okay, drying rack.
Drying is the adjective and then rack would be the R-A-C-K.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, so the grammar lesson for today is about hyphens. Let me go to the beginning of this. So, you want to read this?
Did you just add it in? Did you just add it in?
Yeah, I wrote it separately and then put it in here. That way I didn't have to share a new document with you.
Oh, okay. Because I just printed it without this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it's part of this now.
But never mind, I'll print it later.
So the hyphen, go ahead and read.
Hyphen is a mark that joins words or parts of words and is placed directly between letters and with no spaces. As indicated below, the hyphen is used in several ways.
Right. So some people call it a dash, by the way.
Okay.
DASH. Like if you're saying it out loud, because hyphen is sort of awkward, it's
Mhm.
hard for people to speak. Sometimes they'll say, like, when they're dictating something to you, like they're telling you what to write, they would say forward dash something. It makes it easier to say it quickly. Also, we can use it like this, hyphenated, as in
Seven.
her after her marriage. Her last name was hyphenated because in Western culture, you know how the people take, this is true in not every, but a lot, right? When you get married to someone, the woman normally takes the man's surname.
Yeah, like Mrs. Jonathan.
Right. Well, yeah, if his last name was Jonathan, like
Like
if his
her
name was
nickname is Lisa, but then once she got married, then people call like if let's say she's married to Jonathan, then we will call her Mrs. Jonathan. Jonathan is the
not where I'm from. Normally what we would say is, okay, let's say her name is Lisa
mm-hmm.
Franklin, marries Charles Stuff. So we would call her Mrs. Stuff. There are some places where you would call her Mrs. Charles Stuff or Mrs. Charles, but
Only
that's a
just
bit
one.
odd. It's more common to, again, as far as I'm aware culturally, it's more common to use the surname. So they use the family name of the husband and then they say Mrs. Stuff. But her friends would still call her Lisa. They would say this. If they were writing about her in the newspaper, they would say Mrs. Lisa Mrs. Lisa Stuff. And then they use this word, nay Franklin. This NEE. How do there's a diacritical mark on it.
Diacritical.
It's like a little like one of these
Slanted. It's a slope.
here. This.
Oh, there is something like
Yeah, this thing. I just don't know how to do it on my keyboard, you know.
oh, never
So,
mind.
we have the diacritical. Oh my god, it's French. That's why. But it's a loan word from French that we use in English. So you use ni and then nay, and then you have her what's called her maiden name.
Maiden name means
Franklin is her maiden name.
Maiden. What does it mean by maiden?
It means like an unmarried woman, a young unmarried woman. So when she was a maiden, her last name was Franklin. Now that she's married, her last name is Stuff. But especially for someone who is like a famous person, like let's say Marilyn Monroe got married to Robert Kennedy, they would say Mrs. Marilyn Kennedy, nay Monroe, because she was famous and people might not know her by her new husband's name, but they would know her by her maiden name.
Maiden name that means
Her
she
family
follows
surname.
her father's name.
Yeah, right. But there's another option. and this is more popular with like the advent of feminism and things like that, because a lot of women felt like, oh, well, it's not really fair that I should give up my last name and take my husband's. So some couples agreed to do a hyphenated last name. So they would say they would get married and their name would be, her name would be Lisa Franklin Stuff. You would put
Oh,
a
so
hyphen
she
there.
puts her family's name
Her family's name first.
first and then,
Yeah.
oh, I see.
Also, if someone is like, so my mom is a doctor and she got married after she was already a doctor. So because her patients would be confused, she kept her maiden name. So she goes outside of the office, she would go by my father's surname, which is Reese. So she would be Kathy Reese. Her first name is Kathy. And then in the office, they would call her Dr. Sweeney. Sweeney is her maiden name.
Oh, okay.
Sweeney is her family name. And Reese is my father's family name. But because this is true for a lot of professionals who are known by their name, they
They
don't
don't
want to
want
get
to.
they don't want to confuse people. So when they get married, they'll go by doctor whatever rather than going by their new husband's name. It's their choice, but a lot of people depend on their name for their business, etc. And plus they would have to change. I mean, if you're a doctor, you're constantly signing medicines and prescriptions. So it would be super confusing to have to go, and it would just be a ton of work to change everything. So a lot of people say, okay, I'll go by my husband's name personally, but professionally I'll go by my maiden name. For men it's quite easy because men aren't expected to change their names.
Okay. Got it.
There are cases of men taking the woman's name. That's like a very new thing and very uncommon. It's like a statement if the man wants to be like, I support women's rights or something. I actually, I think that's it's very socially, if you did that, people would think you were weird. We'll put it that way. It's socially frowned upon.
Frowned upon means like,
So I'm not even gonna, don't even confuse yourself with that part because it's so uncommon.
okay. So
Uh,
what about like first name and last name? Like when people ask you, what is your first name and last name? So I say,
First name would
Shirley,
be
but
Carolyn, and then your last name, well, or it would be your Chinese first name, not first in order, but your personal name, and then your last name would be your family name or your surname.
okay. Surname is the same as maiden name, right?
Surname is family name,
Family name. Is it the same as maiden name?
only if you get married. Your surname becomes your maiden name if you got married. If you're unmarried, then you don't have to change your name.
If I'm unmarried, then I can insist on surname.
Yeah, well, you would never, nobody would, there wouldn't be an issue with the maiden name. You wouldn't have more than one name. You would just have, I don't know exactly how Chinese naming works. Like
Mhm.
but I would assume you have the family name from your father, correct?
Yeah.
So you would just use your father's name,
Yeah.
right? There are cultures like Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
In Spain, here, I'll show you an example. Like, I don't know, what's a famous Spanish person? Ronaldo. He's Portuguese, but same as they say in Thailand. So you can see this, right? Cristiano Ronaldo dos Santos Aveiro. They include their mom's name and their father's name. Or
Mm.
another example, um, who is the president of Spain? Prime Minister, the Presidente del Gobierno. Okay. Pedro Sanchez. But his name is Pedro Sanchez Perez Castellon. So the way it works is he keeps his mother's name and his father's name in his name.
And then it's hyphenated. Means
I think actually Sanchez is probably his father's name, and then Perez Castellon was his mother's name. And
you emphasize the male's name first in front.
I believe
Yes.
so.
Okay.
Just
So
because.
like
Go ahead.
your name, your last name will be Patrick, while your surname will be Reese.
First name Patrick. Last name and surname are synonymous.
Oh, okay, got it. So
Here,
we don't call myself, I don't call myself Mrs. Carol, right? I mean Miss Carol. I don't call myself
good.
Carol. I call myself Miss Tan.
If it depends on where you are. Most places, yeah, you would say you were Miss Tan, but in the southern U.S.,
Mm-hmm.
they would call you Miss Carol. Like
Oh,
they would call me Mr. Patrick.
oh, Mr. Reese. Oh,
Yeah,
I
at
mean,
most places I would be Mr. Reese, but in the southern US, they prefer to use the first name as a form of like, it comes off sounding like cute or friendly. And the southern US is big on being like friendly or cute is probably the wrong word, but they're big on like hospitality and manners and things. And they think it's for them, the convention is to go by, they would call you Miss Carol or Miss Carolyn. Also, depending on the school that you're at, like when you're real for younger kids,
mm-hmm.
they're generally going to use the teacher's first name. So if you were teaching like first, second, third grade, maybe even up to sixth grade, you would call your teacher Miss Carolyn. But then when you start teaching high school or middle school, you switch over to your last name because the kids are old enough that they should learn. The idea is that they should learn to start calling the teachers by their last name because that's how they'll use it in the world of grown-ups, because in the world of grown-ups, people generally don't call strangers by their first name, especially a professional like a teacher who is in a position of authority over the students. I know that's a lot, but the takeaway point is that when you have when you're married, you're going to take your husband's name, or you can choose to hyphenate it. But when people talk about you, they're going to refer to you using that name, either the hyphenated or your husband's name. And that, depending on, that's your choice. You can hyphenate it,
Mm-hmm.
or you can take your husband's name. And then if they need to talk about your name from before, like your father's name, they would call it your maiden name, since that was your last name when you were a maiden, when you were not married.
Okay. You okay. Maiden name is the same as surname.
No, maiden.
Maiden
It's
comes after you get
it's
married.
a type. It's a type of surname. So your maiden name is your name. Okay, my name is Patrick.
Okay.
Pretend I'm a girl. My name is Patricia Reese. That's the girl version of my name.
Okay.
I get married to someone named John Silver. John Silver is my new husband. So my name is now Patricia Silver, but my maiden name is Reese.
Also another version of surname, but it
Yeah,
comes after you get married.
it's your former surname, like from
Oh,
before.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But what about the hyphen? Like if
Hyphen is if you want to keep both names.
or it only appears in the Spanish naming custom.
No, it appears in English.
Uh,
The reason the reason the prime minister of Spain has that is because his mother, I guess,
mm,
her parents chose to hyphenate their names. So it actually does keep, this is going to get really confusing if we get into the Spanish part. So let's just ignore Spanish for now.
okay.
Um, so with the hyphen, it's, let's say you want to get married to someone, but you don't think it's fair that you should give up your maiden name. So instead of giving up your maiden name, you add your husband's name to the end.
Mm,
So you keep your maiden name first, then you add your husband's name with a hyphen. So you become, I would become Patricia Silver. Sorry, I would become
sure,
Patricia
Reese
Reese
Silver.
Silver. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Is it common to do so?
Yeah, especially with
And
liberal white collar people, like people of a certain, it goes along with politics a bit,
mm,
right? Because liberals tend to be more I don't know, more into like women's lib, that sort of thing. So versus conservatives, at least in the US and probably in the UK as well, probably even in Spain, they tend to be more, okay, well, we should do things according to custom. So what happens is those people tend to have, I would say it's like maybe 5-10% of the population, maybe less than that. It's not extremely common, but you will see it.
mm, okay. So if let's say you want to fill up a form, you want to fill in the form, you will just
Feel in the
um
what? Sorry.
fill in the form, any form that you want to fill in or any official document. Then if let's say they require to give your full name
Correct.
according to you should write your your first name and your last name following your maiden's name or you put your
No, they're not going to ask you for your maiden name generally, unless it'll specifically say maiden name, if any. If it'll say, like, please state your maiden name if applicable, which means that obviously you would have to be a woman and you would have to have been married. If you're unmarried, it doesn't really matter. Or if you're a man, you would leave that space blank. That's really only for what it is common for is like security questions. Like for a if you open a bank account, they'll say, please choose a security question. And a common one will be like, what was your mother's maiden name? Or what is your mother's maiden name? Like, what was your first pet? And you put the name of your first pet. What was your mother's maiden name? Because it's something that isn't only you, only pretty much only you are going to know that. Some person that has stolen your identity isn't going to be able to know your mother's maiden name.
oh,
It's private.
okay, understood.
Got you. Okay, so what was the other part I wanted to add to that? Oh, um, when you're filling out the form, they'll probably just ask for first, middle, and last, or first, middle, initial, and last.
If let's say I don't have a middle name,
Then you just leave it blank, right?
okay.
The
So you
middle
emphasize
name,
on the first name, but if
right,
you say you don't have a middle name, just ignore it.
right. The middle name is just chosen. It's sort of for fun, I guess. Well, for fun is the wrong word, but it doesn't really mean anything. Or like, my middle name is my grandfather's first name. So when my parents were naming me, they wanted to give me a name that was in my family. Or maybe the parents can't decide what to name a baby. Like the mom wants one name and the dad wants another name. So they compromise. And the dad says, okay, you can choose the baby's first name, but I want to give him
Another middle
my
name.
middle name or a middle name from the family.
Oh,
Or just one that they think sounds cool.
okay.
Like, I think Kanye West's baby is called Northwest, which is pretty funny to me.
Okay. You mean a singer, right?
Yeah, yeah. But, Northwest is pretty funny
I like
because of the directions. Okay. Um, so the first one, you've probably seen this, right? We use a hyphen at the end of a line to divide a word where there is not enough space for the whole word. And there are rules for this. Honestly, you never have to worry about this because this goes back to typewriters when people had to manually type.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
you're using handwriting, then you're probably gonna have, I mean, unless you're writing like a machine and
Oh,
just like mindlessly writing, you're gonna see, okay, this word is too long, so I'm gonna put it on the next line.
yeah.
But if you're typing, the word processor will do this for you. So I'm not sure how much time we should really spend on it. Just know that
Okay.
you can only do it with two or more syllable words. So you want to read this one?
Okay. For effective proofreading, certain strategies are recommended.
Correct. So that's correct. You know what proofreading is?
No,
It would be editing and checking for mistakes.
editing and checking for mistakes.
You could think proof. So proof is finding proof, right? And
Mhm.
reading. So you're finding proof that it's correct, etc. A proofreader is actually a job description. So a proofreader's job, it's it used to be a whole job. Now an editor is also expected to be a proofreader. So if you write a book, your editor will proofread the document to make sure there are no mistakes, like spelling, grammar, that sort of thing.
I thought we have like some apps that works like a proofreader. We don't need
Sure,
a person
but
to do it.
for complicated prose, prose,
PROSE.
prose is like long form writing. So we have prose versus poetry. But certainly for poetry, where you're being very creative with your words, a
Mm-hmm.
computer a computer can't figure out everything all the time because you might not be using traditional grammar. So a proofreader can help and make sure that there's something that the computer didn't catch or something that should just looks a bit odd. But yeah, spell check, probably the reason there's not as many proofreaders anymore is probably because of the invention of spell check. And then prose is more straight. Prose is like standard writing, but it's like writing fiction. Um, could be fiction or nonfiction, but it's using like full sentences, blah blah blah, rather than poetry where you could just be super creative with your words and sentence structure.
Okay, so both are opposite to each other, right? They are not the same.
They're different categories. I wouldn't say opposite.
Oh,
You
okay.
could have prose that has a bit of poetry in it. But
Mhm.
I'll use uh what's her name? J.K. Rowling? Yeah. J.K. Rowling's prose was nicely written. Or she was known for her elegant style of prose. It's a type of writing.
Why not of prosing? Why not we use of prosing? Or
Because
It's just a noun.
it's a noun.
Okay.
It's not a gerund noun like with ing. It's just a noun. Like
Okay.
it would be like poetry. You could substitute it with poetry and it would still make sense.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Okay. And then we can skip this part, I think. After taking the workshop on proofreading, it really seems that I'm better at editing my own papers.
Why is it incorrect? I thought.
Because seems is one syllable.
Oh, one syllable. Okay.
Think about the reader. They would see it really seems. They would have a pause in the middle. Versus if
Become.
you're reading aloud, certain strategies are recommended. It gives your brain time to process it.
Like for example, strategies like you don't have enough space, then you have to put a hyphen after the letter A instead of, if let's say
After the
you
letter T.
T.
Actually, yeah, you're right. After the letter A.
Okay. And then
And then
how about water?
yeah, it would be WA-TER.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So this one, could you do WAT-ER? I think so, because you're dividing. In one case you leave the vowel at the
Water.
beginning, and the other one you leave the vowel at the end. So I think it's probably up to you. I don't know. That's a problem I've never had to deal with because of word processors. I grew up after typewriters were already outdated, so I've never actually had to do that. But it's something to be aware of. Plus, I just wanted to go over the vocab there, which was proofreading. Incorrect. So do not divide a word between syllables if only one letter remains alone or if only two letters begin a line. So you don't want to strand one letter. So afraid is two syllables, but we don't divide it because we don't want to leave the A alone. Could you do AF? I don't know. I'm not sure. We realized that she was trying to get attention, so we simply ignored her. So
letters.
because we have two letters stranded at the end here,
Oh, okay.
that's incorrect.
Or if only two letters begin a line. Okay.
Yeah,
Either one or two, then we cannot hyphenate it.
one at the beginning, two at the end. That's the rule. So one letter at the beginning, can't do it. Two at the end, can't do it. Three is fine. These are, someone at one point had to be like, okay, we need to draw the line somewhere. You know that idiom, to draw the line? Right. So they had to make a rule. That's why you have some of these sort of like, okay, that's silly, right? What's the point of this? Just to try to clean things up. But your word processor will do that for you anyway, whether it's Docs or Microsoft Word. Okay, so you should just move the entire word, afraid or simply, to the next line.
Okay.
And if it's a hyphenated compound word, you always divide it at the hyphen. So we're now at our warm-up sentence.
Sorry.
No problem. Your sister?
Yeah.
Okay. So she was relieved to have the innocuous, you know that word already, title of president-elect rather than to have real responsibility. Let's just leave this off.
Innocuous. I've never heard of this word. Is this another
comes-
form of
It
innocent?
comes from the word inoculate, to make harmless.
I learned this word in the science laboratory.
Yeah, so you inoculate someone, it's like vaccinating them. Before vaccines, they had to actually find a person that was sick, scrape, like let's say they had smallpox, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would find the smallpox sore on their arm. They would scrape it off with a knife. Then they would cut your arm, and then they would smear the nasty pus from the sick person into your body. Then you would get a little bit sick, or you would die. But hopefully, you just get a little bit sick. And then from that point on, you can resist smallpox. Your body forms the necessary bits to fight off smallpox. So
Okay.
your immune system is ready for it. But moving away from science, innocuous is when something is harmless. Like president elect is an innocuous title.
Okay.
It means that you won the election, but you're not yet the president. Like in America, the elections are held in November, and then
Mm-hmm.
the president is sworn in on the new after the new year. I think January something. I forget the exact date, but it's in January. So from November 7th until January, like the current president is Joseph Biden, but from November to January, he was the president elect. It means that he gets all the titles, but he doesn't have any real power. He's not actually the president yet.
So innocuous means you are not the real president yet until you are sworn in.
Innocuous just means harmless,
Okay, harmless.
or yeah, basically harmless or innocent.
Okay.
Um, her behavior seemed innocuous enough
Okay.
You could get rid of enough if you want. I used it there to emphasize that it's innocuous enough, meaning it's to the point where it's not really a big deal.
Mm. Okay.
Or you could say
Wait a moment.
you could say like she seemed innocuous, but she was really a wolf in sheep's clothing.
What's that?
A wolf in sheep's clothing is an idiom. Didn't we cover that? Maybe not. A wolf in sheep's clothing is from the Bible, I believe. It means like
You act
someone
innocent,
who,
but you are evil inside.
yeah, right. You look innocent on the outside, but inside you're dangerous or
Okay.
sinful.
Mm-mm.
I think that's from the Bible. Would have to check. A lot of this stuff in English is from the Bible originally. Okay, so correct. She was relieved to have the. So basically, what were we talking about? Oh, that a hyphenated compound word like president elect, it needs to be divided on the hyphen.
Yeah.
So let's just skip a bit because I don't think this is very important because your word processor will do it for you.
Okay.
Spelling, this is pretty obvious, right? So if you're writing and you're saying, okay, kids, do you know the word hello? It's spelled Hello. You put a hyphen between each word or each letter.
Mhm.
Okay. YLUS.
Stylus. Okay.
Stylus is a pen that you
And
write on it. Yeah.
tablet.
Yeah. Good. Okay. You have a large vocabulary. Makes my job easy. Okay. So use a hyphen to join two or more words to form compound adjectives that precede, meaning go before a noun. So basically, a lot of times you'll have an adjective plus the adjective will modify, the adverb will modify the adjective. For example, well stocked. So in this case, you want to hyphenate it. So you don't say well stocked, you say well stocked with a hyphen. That way we know the reader isn't confused. They know that well is modifying stocked, not modifying cupboards.
What about well-being and
Yeah, well-being,
human
correct.
being? You also put a hyphen in the middle.
I'm concerned for her well-being.
Okay.
Being
What
would be
about
the
health?
noun.
Do you have the word health being? No. Okay.
Just say for her health.
Well-being means what's the
Her
meaning of
health.
well-being? Her health. Okay.
Yeah. I'm concerned. You could call the police and say, I'm concerned for my sister's well-being. I think someone is going to kidnap her. Okay. So do you want to read this part? I think it's useful.
Okay. The purpose of joining words to form a compound adjective is to differentiate the meaning from the adjectives used separately, such as up to date, merchandise, right? Or merchandise.
Second,
The second one, merchandise.
merchandise. It's
Merchandise.
a hard ch.
Oh, okay. Sure. Merchandise.
Mhm.
Copper coated wire, fire tested material, lump sum payment, and well stocked cupboard. What about one-off payment? Do we have one-off payment?
Yep. That would also be hyphenated.
One-off payment means you only pay
One
pay
time.
it for one time.
Yeah.
Pay for one time or pay it for one time? Pay for one time.
Pay one time. No for.
Pay one time. Just need to pay.
You need to only pay one. You only need to pay one time.
You
One time payment. It's in adverts a lot. So you'll see an advert that says, now available for a one-time payment of $30, as opposed to someone who wants you to pay $30 and then $20 and then $20 and then $20. It's like a common, not scam, but a marketing technique where they advertise things on TV and they'll say, now available for $19.99, $19.99, but you have to make 3 payments. So it's really $60.
Oh, okay. So it's
Right.
a strategy to advertise your product. So it sounds cheaper.
Right. 19, just like saying 1995 instead of 20, right? I'm sure
Oh, okay. Yeah.
like they might say that something is 49.95 ringgit or whatever the smaller part. What is the, do you have something after the decimal in your currency?
49.90. We don't have 5 cents.
But do you have like, can things cost instead of 50, can they cost RM
49.99.
Yeah. Can they?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you call these in your currency? Would you just call it 0.99 ringgit, or would you actually have a separate name for it, like
Mhm.
cents or satang?
Normally, I just read it as $49.99, which is pretty long.
Okay,
I can't find a way,
got you.
easier way to say it.
I just wasn't sure how it worked in with ringgit, but we can just use dollars since you already know dollars.
Is it the same to say one-off payment and one-time payment?
Yes.
It's the same thing. Okay.
Yep. Lump sum payment sort of
So
has some,
mean you don't have the installment.
right,
You don't do installment.
right.
Okay.
A lump sum as opposed to a bunch of installments. Although a lump sum, you could, it just indicates that it's a big payment in probably for one time, but it doesn't have to be one time the way a one-time payment, it's in the name. Sorry, my got the hiccups. A one-time payment is in the name. It's only once, or a one-off payment, right?
For example, can I make a sentence like this? The government has announced a 15% discount for the for the debtors for the students because we actually applied for the study loan and then a lot of students are not paying up. So the government offered a 15% discount for the debtors. So I say that I am planning to clear off the debt lump sum.
No, you would say, I am planning to make a lump sum payment to clear my debt.
I can't say I want to pay lump sum, right? I don't say it like that.
No, the grammar there, you make a payment. You
Oh, I
don't,
opt for lump sum payment.
you have to make a payment. You use the verb make.
Okay.
You could use the verb pay also, but pay is a bit odd because you're saying I want to pay a payment. It's a bit odd. I would avoid using pay. Anytime you're talking about a payment, try not to use the verb pay. Try to use make a payment.
Make a payment.
Or you could say pay a lump sum.
Pay a lump sum.
Yeah. But I think lump sum payment is fine.
Okay.
Or you could say a one-time payment. Okay. By the way, it would be for debtors. You don't, because debtors is plural here, and just in the context, you don't need the. So the government has announced a 15% discount for debtors. It's not specific to any particular group of debtors, it's all debtors. So you don't need your article. You can drop the.
Oh, okay. And then for DEB, PORs, we challenge the letter B, right? Do we need to pronounce the letter B? Debt.
Hold on, there's a problem with
Okay.
my sound. The letter B is silent.
Okay.
Damn. Sometimes my laptop does this. The audio driver will crackle a bit, and I have to unplug it and plug it back in the power charging cord. Can you speak again?
Yeah, it's working fine now.
Yeah. So he was proud of his well-stocked cupboards. So the adverb well describes stocked rather than cupboards. I'm concerned for her well-being. All right, this one. Kathy drove her 7-year-old son, and you can write it like this if you want.
Okay.
By the way, the sort of soft rule for numbers, write out 1 through 10.
Okay. 1 through 10 or 1 to 10?
Both, either one.
Yes.
So write out 1 through 10, and then for
The time.
11 plus, use the numerals.
Okay.
So if you're writing, you should write out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like
In
you would
word.
write 9 as NINE, but if it's 11 or more, you want to use numerals. But it's a soft rule, meaning that it's not actually a grammar rule, it's just a convention. So it's sort of up to you. Use your judgment. If you need to save space, use the numerals.
Okay. Got it.
And obviously for big numbers, you should probably avoid writing it out unless you're actually trying to teach someone how to write 120, because by the time you write out 120, it uses so much space.
But we do so when we want to write a check, right?
Yes, to
Yeah.
avoid. Why is that? I think it's to avoid people faking a check.
Oh, yeah. Correct.
Makes it harder for someone else to come by and then erase or use something to remove ink and then forge the check. I think that's why.
Forced.
Like, for example, like if you wrote out a check for $100 and then someone came by and then they added a zero so that it said $1,000, you
So
know,
put them in.
by writing 100, it makes it impossible, well, very hard for that second person, the criminal, to change the amount of the check.
Okay.
Okay, so use a hyphen to avoid awkward doubling 2 times of vowels. So semi-independence. You could say the Vatican is a semi-independent state inside Rome. The Vatican is, the Vatican?
Vatican? What do you,
Vatican is its own little mini country. Inside Italy, there's a smaller country that's separate from Italy called the Vatican. It's where the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, lives. They have their own police and everything.
No, I've never heard of that.
Well, you would write it like this. The Vatican is a semi-independent nation state. Use another hyphen for nation state, located within Rome. Here's the Vatican. I think you'll know it actually. Oh, they have their own website, and .va is Vatican. That's pretty cool. So it's an independent city-state and enclave located within Rome, Italy. Tiny. It's like one of the tiniest countries in the world. The population is 825, smallest in the world.
Oh, okay. So it's considered as an independent country.
Yes. I just used semi-independent. I wasn't sure if it was independent or not.
So they have their own government, they have their own way of ruling.
Yeah, it's ruled by the church.
Oh, okay. Got it.
They don't really have any issues. They only have 825 people and they're all employees of the church. So it's not like it's very they don't really have a lot of problems there. People don't get killed, etc. So ruling it isn't really a problem.
Okay.
but it does create some interesting diplomatic situations. Like, say, what do you do if a criminal decides to run away from the Italian police and then hide in the Vatican City? They have rules for how that works.
Mm.
Okay, so re-elect. I've actually seen re-elect written this way. Re-election campaign. It's actually not wrong, but most people prefer to put that way you separate the vowels.
What about pre-order?
Yeah.
You also put a hyphen.
I always write pre-order with a hyphen, and you should too. It
Okay,
makes it easier for your reader.
right.
Again, like pre-order without the hyphen, is it grammatically wrong? Depends on who you ask, but it makes it hard for the reader.
Because of because there are two vowels combining with each other. So
Right, and they're two separate vowels, right? It's not like pre-order. If it was written like a normal English word, EO would make an EO sound like pre-order. I don't know. It sounds different than pre-order. You want to separate the two words.
okay, got it.
Like re-elect. If you read this without the hyphen, they might say re-elect. Re-elect. Like real, REEL, and then ECT. Okay, so I guess we're already at 48, so we'll go over the rest of this stuff next week.
Okay, got it. Can
But hopefully this was useful for you. I'm trying to go through things that are more like advanced grammar concepts.
I find myself struggling with conversation. I feel that maybe I'm fluent but not proficient. Sometimes I find myself very hard. It's hard for me to find a word to
Why don't I prepare another conversation lesson like the one we did where we practiced?
in the past. I actually find myself how do I say it? I actually prefer the previous way of learning. Actually,
Okay.
I can
Sure.
practice my speech.
Well, I have all that written out here, so we can use that next time.
All
I
right.
have some discussion questions and then something for us to talk about from the news.
Okay.
All right, so we'll go to that next week.
You mean use the same worksheet? You mean this one?
Yeah, I might add a few more discussion questions because I'm not sure we have enough here for 45 minutes or for 1 hour rather.
Okay.
I think so, but I'm not. I'll add more. It's fine for me. Okay.
Okay.
I will see you next week.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you and goodbye.
Welcome.